Pepsi Cola bought Pizza Hut as part of their plan to sell more Pepsi Cola. And it just happened that was one of the brands they used to do it. It's got a bizarre thing that you think of pizza being this thing. Well, actually, it was the Pepsi.
Pepsi came first.
Pepsi came first. You'd also know that Pizza Hut came about because there was a glut of cheese in America. And they were trying to get cheese into people, and they came up with pizzas they did. So Pizza Hut's been going a long, long time. It's bought by Pepsi Cola buys it in 1977, starts investing a load of capital, opening lots and lots of sites, and it kind of starts growing with the population. More people go out for their lunchtime. I have to say, as a student, I might possibly have been to Pizza Hut on a cold and wet Wednesday night in Hendon, eat a full pizza, then go home. It was just kind of what you did. And worked very well for a little while, I think. And then we have it growing across the world, lots of brands, lots of Pepsi being sold.
Definitely was a successful model. I also remember Pizza Hut, so it was more of a luxury.
I'm sure your parents would take you out for a pizza.
Yeah, let's go Pizza Hut. Let's dine in. We would do the buffet. I believe it was the buffet. So you'd go up and get some pineapples and salads. I'm going into detail, but it was a dining experience for the family, for me personally. And I do remember, obviously, they transitioned slightly. They had takeaway shops.
2012 that happened. They split it up between the dine-in and the delivery. Can I show you that pizza was around from the 1950s? So obviously there was no internet in the 1950s. The concept of driving out to pick up a pizza probably wasn't there in the 1950s. People eat and do things in a very different way over time, and it probably makes sense to split it, doesn't it? Because your business when you're delivering pizza is a very different business. Probably, if it's a delivery business, you're where the people live. If it's an eating business, it's where the people go to play, and they're probably completely different places.
And back then, it was an affordable experience as well. So for you could dine in on a budget, even if you're celebrating an occasion, and it wasn't really hurting your pocket. So I guess with that model, that's probably why they succeeded and grew so well.
And then of course we have the slight problem of COVID in 2020, when obviously all the restaurants get closed, and I suspect the restaurants. I mean, from what I get it, the restaurants weren't doing great by 2020, but the dining. The deliveries were doing fine. You probably find the restaurants weren't allowed to do. I mean, I'm sure there'd have been restaurants around where you live which started delivering. In the middle of COVID, you probably find that not only were the pizza restaurants in the wrong place, but you probably find their license wouldn't allow them to do deliveries, because then they're actually competing with their own sub-brand of the deliveries. Throughout this process, I remember there was a CVA and then there'd be administrations as to try and...
Yeah, they during COVID, that's probably when the UK division for Pizza Hut dining restaurants realised that they were in trouble. They lost their footfall, and they probably found out that the dining experience wasn't actually as fruitful, as lucrative. And looking at that in a little bit more detail, the labour costs to run a restaurant versus obviously keeping the lights on, business rates, cost of ingredients, it ended up, I mean, every day they were running to a deficit. So going into obviously a formal process through an insolvency procedure was inevitable.
I always think the only constant in life is change. The British people, or the people in the world, are continually changing their behaviour. They don't like change, and they do kind of revert back to various habits over time, but sooner or later they stop doing certain things and start doing other things. And I certainly I don't view COVID as being a precipice of people just stopping going to restaurants. I'm viewing it as being a point where you couldn't go to a restaurant, and people weren't going to restaurants as much as they were. They never kind of went back. Their way of eating food and their way of going out on a Wednesday night or not going out on a Wednesday night had fundamentally changed, and they therefore didn't see the need to go back to Pizza Hut.
Just for the viewers that are listening to this, and obviously we're talking about Pizza Hut, we're talking about on a very surface level that obviously lack of footfall, cost of like business rates, etc. But if we go back to the actual capital structure of the business, because no business just fails overnight. There's a lot of financial cracks. So why don't we look at its structure? Because that for me is the tell. Could you explain a little bit more about when the company was acquired by a venture
capitalist? Well, so there is always this thing, is that the amount of there is these very, very clever people work out how much profit you should be making, how much return on capital you should be making for what's employed in a given company. If you've got obviously billions of pounds of capital, you need to be making a very large return to get to the percentage necessary. What happened to Pizza Hut, which almost happened with Debenhams, which is another one of our chats, is that the amount of return wasn't sufficient to cover the amount of capital involved. So someone came in and said, venture capitalist said, well, I think I can just change the way you're doing things slightly and improve the return on that capital. So they I think they bought that out of administration as well, from memory, and they tried, and they I think they invested in a lot more restaurants. They closed some restaurants. They changed some of the menu. They changed, they amended a few bits and pieces on it, and from what I've seen, it kind of worked. Not amazingly well, but it kind of worked within the within the confines. Particularly, I think there was a management buyout as well after that. So obviously the management were quite happy to back it and thought there was still life in it. I mean, the other thing that's quite interesting about with Pizza Hut is it was quite a large franchising model. You could buy a Debenhams franchise, you went and bought your site, and you had to run your Pizza Hut restaurant the way Pizza Hut told you to run it, with the staff wearing the right outfits and etc., etc., etc. And again, that brought more capital into Pizza Hut. But which again, it's a double-edged sword, because if Pizza Hut is going up and you've invested in a franchise, you're going to go up on the back of Pizza Hut. If Pizza Hut's gone its way down, then you're following. You could be the best run Pizza Hut in the world, but you're not going to survive because the brand is going. The management bought out one of the last, or January 2025, I think it was. They bought out the restaurants for the last time.
Yeah.
And I suspect at that point it was probably a little bit too late. They obviously thought they could, in good faith, they thought they could do it. It was going to work. You just look at these things, don't you? That the customers were moving, and they could go back and encourage them, come back another couple of times, but the customers were moving, and they weren't moving with the customers.
Yeah, I think that's you hit the nail on the head. I mean, I wouldn't say McDonald's is a direct compare, but it's the same. It's a principle of two different ships in the same storm. And when you look at McDonald's, that has always optimized itself. It's always changed itself based on the customer experience. It's always innovation and adapting. It's been part of their culture. And the problem with Pizza Hut is that they're in a market that is saturated. There's so many pizza delivery outlets offering a lower cost, more variety based on the local areas as well.
Slightly pizza that's slightly more geared to the modern taste for pizza.
Yeah, everyone does stuffed crust. Stuffed crust used to be only Pizza Hut.
It did, yes.
I won't go into like what pizzas I ordered because I'll start dribbling. No. But it, we've got a generation that is more health conscious, that is more cost conscious, and that they can see value. And the problem with Pizza Hut is that they just haven't marketed themselves as well as their competitors. And that's it, plain as.
So I have an interesting take. Well, I think it's an interesting take. You may agree or disagree. In that the fact that the end of the Pizza Hut story is back to Pepsi Cola and Yum, the brands, in that Pizza Hut is put into this place where it's there as a vehicle to sell Pepsi, along with I think it was 10 or 15 other brands, all of which were those big, fairly brash American type brands, all of which sold Pepsi, and Yum buy back Pizza Hut later in 2025, obviously because they can still see the value of running a restaurant that sells Pepsi and pizza, and it's almost like the amount of talk about the return on capital of employed. They sold it in 1977 for quite a lot of money. A lot of people have played with it, tweaked it a bit, and I suspect, and then some has worked quite well, some hasn't quite worked so well. Customers have moved. The pizzas have changed. You can't get a Super Supreme anymore. I've found out, and you now get to 2025, and Yum come in again and buy it again at a much smaller level. So they've obviously worked out that the amount of Pepsi they're going to sell is worth the price of paying for Pizza Hut again. And I just wonder whether they've had someone sitting there watching it, watching what worked, what didn't work, and they've got a plan for the future based on all the knowledge they've had of that brand since the 1970s.
I hope so.
Anyway, I think we're done.
Yep. If you like what you heard, obviously please like and subscribe. Thank you.